Hey RJ, hey Chris, how you guys doing today?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Excellent.
Excellent. Well, we're back again with another partner webinar, and today we're meeting with our friend RJ Stevens from Friends of Commerce. RJ is a great partner, and we're going to be partying next week in Chicago together. But today we decided to get together and start a new series, and this series is going to be really fun. I'm going to let RJ introduce the title, and then I'm going to talk about all the things that this makes. So, RJ, what's the title of our webinar today?
Yeah, I think it's about digital readiness, and that means a lot of things to different people. So, because there's really the way that we look at it is there's basically, I would say maybe five different facets of digital readiness. And if you don't have all those things dialed in, it's like the weakest link in a chain. It's gonna break.
Yeah,
So every piece you need to focus on, which seems like a lot, but if you can just take it sort of chunk by chunk, step by step, you can
yep,
get there. And a lot of these things are sequential. So you don't need to do them all at once, but you got to start with the first things first and move on. So and in
yeah.
in our world, the first thing is acquisition, right? Like, we people come to us and we, sort of do some sort of commerce implementation. You guys do incredible work with that as well. And the old adage from like Field of Dreams of like, hey, if you build it, they will come. That is absolutely not true on the internet. That is not the case, right? You can
Yep.
make something great, but if nobody knows it's there, you're just going to be collecting dust. So there's a lot of things you need to do to get the right people there, which is acquisition. So
Yeah.
that's the first topic for us. And I've out of the different sort of elements that make up acquisition, I would guess I'd turn it back to the clarity side. Which of those things do you think maybe is the starting point for acquisition?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way I think about it, and I'll turn it over to Chris here in a minute for the technical aspect, but the way I think about it is what is acquisition? Well, acquisition can be a number of things. Acquisition, for the most part, is how do I bring people to my new site, right? Now, there are a number of different ways. There's internal ways, there's external ways, there's referrals, there's, five, six, seven, eight different ways. And everybody I think's heard of the term lately, omni-channel, right? What is the omni-channel approach? Well, that typically means that you're on multiple channels pitching this. What could that mean? Well, I could be sending out mailers, right? If I'm selling a property, I'm going to post flyers. I'm going to go out on the social channels. I might send out digital email. I might go on TV. I might go on radio. We've got all those traditional direct marketing. Obviously, for online, SEO is the big one, right? You've got pay to play, which would be your ads and placing ads. You got Facebook ads, you got LinkedIn ads, you got Google ads, you've got different ads all over the place now. You've got partners where I could go on partner sites. You've got events. And then the big one, the one that we live and die by, is SEO. That's obviously the biggest one. And you think about all those things, you have to know and understand your target audience and how to reach them and what of those mediums is going to reach them. If you think about building a new website, which is what we do, right? We do a lot of new websites and we launch these websites. You think about the billions of properties that are up online that, first off, when you build the site, it has to be indexed, right? Google and the search engines have to index and find the site first. And then once they index it, they have to rank it for specific keywords for all these billions of sites. And that's a lot of what your digital preparation that you're talking about, RJ, is that if the site's not ready, even if they index it, the way Google does their algorithm, they have to rank all these sites. So when Ron goes in and says best tacos, there's a lot of factors in that, right? I don't have to say best tacos in Austin, Texas, or best tacos 3 miles away from and type in my address. I don't have to do all that, right? I literally type best tacos and it shows me the best taco places within a few miles of my house here in Austin, Texas. And why is that? Well, because location and knowing my location is a ranking factor for Google. So we have to understand all these things before we can really define what acquisition is. So I'm going to turn over to Chris. We have our own, Clarity has our own commerce platform, obviously, and we've been doing this now for 18 years. And one of the things we're working on right now is our next gen architecture, which changes a lot. And so, Chris, why don't you talk about how our platform and some of the things you guys in engineering are doing to address and help with this acquisition?
Absolutely. And just to kind of set that up, I think all of us would agree the reason that digital readiness and acquisition is so important is it kind of boils back down to for either the business owner or a director or manager, C-level of a division, whoever might be listening to this, someone who's really technical. It kind of all boils down to how are we going to make this website and our company scale, and how are we going to make it more profitable, and how we're going to make it a better experience for our users. And the acquisition side of this can be a huge factor because, like you said earlier, Ron, what stream of traffic, what channel to market to is going to bring the most optimal customers? That's a question to answer. There are a lot of questions to kind of get into before going into some of the technical detail that I'm going to hit on. So I just want to kind of preface that and just reinforce that for folks, that there's a lot of strategic kind of review and discussion that can really make a big difference in the effectiveness of whatever implementation you get to. On the implementation side of things, I think everyone would agree. The reality right now is there are constant changes with technical implementations of these pieces. And it doesn't matter where, what channel you're marketing into, whether it's social and using really creative sort of syndication models to get more powerful content out there and do it more consistently. Or if it's paid ads and making those highly catered to that particular audience you're marketing to, there's some pretty incredible stuff you can do with retargeting and focusing on the right audience for your offer. And then, like you said, Ron, with SEO, one of the things that's really interesting about SEO is page speed. I don't know if everybody knows this, but Google theoretically, supposedly, some of their code was leaked into open source repos that are now all over the web. And there's like 14,000 lines of their code for their algorithm were leaked just a couple of days ago. And it's pretty interesting because everyone in SEO sort of already knew how Google worked. They just didn't technically know. And so now we actually are able to see the code and we can say, yeah, that's actually how it works. And so it's interesting, basically bringing that sort of algorithm to bear on how you're going to approach your market is really important. It actually matters for Google if people get what they're looking for. That's kind of the summary. If you wanted to sort of turn it into a golden rule of SEO and just summarize it down, it's Google, and this is logical because they're a business. They want their customers' needs, searchers, those are their main customers. They want their customers' needs to be met and fulfilled, and for the customer to feel like they got a great answer and solution from what they were looking for, right? And so they do everything in their power to make that happen. So how can you and how can we together help you make sure that folks that go to your site are getting their needs met, and that generally speaking, anyone who might have a need in your space, just think about the value that you're offering as a business. How are we going to get that out there so that the search engines understand that and they can help people find you? And a lot of that boils down to some of those technical details, but it's in support of making sure people get what they're after. And a lot of that is page load speed, performance of the site, making sure that it has the right keywords throughout the site. And, there's a lot of nuance to it. And I don't think this is necessarily the right venue to go into all of that nuance. But the sort of summary is that it's an ever-changing landscape as well. One of the things that, is really unchanged is that the Google team wants to serve the customers well, but their algorithm is constantly changing. For anyone that's immersed in the SEO space, that Google makes big updates every few months. And it's kind of like everyone holds their breath waiting for what's going to happen, and how it's going to impact different sites. And so this is something that we just generally would encourage you to at least gain a strategic understanding, a high level understanding of it, and how you're going to really operate within this channel. And again, look at all of the channels. One of the things that I see too, Ron, and I know that we'll talk about this as we go, is a lot of times customers get really myopic with their focus on acquisition. So they'll get really good at SEO, but they won't necessarily take advantage of newsletters and emails to be able to follow up with folks and add more value to them and have that long-term relationship. They may not take advantage of social And so these are big opportunities for different companies in different channels to leverage. So thoughts on that on your end?
Yeah, no, I love that. I'd like to go to RJ and ask him. So Chris has kind of talked some about the technical aspect, and we're doing a lot with our e-commerce engine with AI and embedding a lot of the things that Chris said, and that's kind of why he said this may not be the venues because we could spend 3 hours literally talking about the technology that we're developing right now and working on. But I'd like to throw it over the wall to RJ. So Chris kind of talked about some of the technical aspects. Well, you're now one of those strategic planning and implementation partners. So, how do you now help a client? So, I'm your client and I'm coming to you and I see this thing and I say, hey, Chris said that there's 14,000 lines of code that got leaked and we're all supposed to understand and know about Google. I don't know anything about Google. That doesn't make sense to me. I need a partner like you to help me understand what this means to me. So, RJ, tell me what it means to me and how could you, as the partner, service me, the client?
Yeah, I think that's a really important topic, and Chris brought up a bunch of facets of that deserve attention. One of the things he said that I think a lot of people miss on this is not a set it and forget it thing, right? One is you need to create your strategy around understanding who your ideal customers are. Where are those customers? What channels are they in, right? And the other part of that is even the definition of customer, right? Like that customer group is changing, right? The buyers are getting younger, their expectations are changing. So the customers that you used to have, X number of years ago, that is changing. And so where are your new customers and how are you finding them? And then making sure that based on these changes, that this is something you revisit quarterly or at least annually at the very least. Uh, but when I think about it more from a strategic side, one of the pieces that I often see, especially B2B companies, miss out on is the concept of content marketing, right? Because to your point, it's not only making sure that that your site has the content, your site is optimized, but that content needs to get out. It's got to go out. It's got to go out. It's blogs, it's social, it's different things because you need to take this content to the place where your potential customers are so they can find it there and they can start engaging with you there. So now really the strategy needs to be more proactive and almost pushed out to bring the people in. And a lot of that, I think the stat that I saw is like 88% of B2B buyers do not want to talk to a salesperson. What that means is they want to do self-discovery. They want to find the information on their own. They're going to go to different channels. It could be LinkedIn. It could just be a Google search. It could be some, content area like G2 or something like that, where they're going and they're doing research. And then when they've done their research and they think they're reasonably well informed, they're going to come to your site and say, knock, knock, hey, I'd like to talk to you. So it's that strategy has changed a lot over the past handful of years. So I think that's one big piece. We've had clients that have built, a site that they were super proud of, and then they're like, well, no, nobody's coming. We're like, okay, well, let's talk about what is this? What is your content marketing strategy? And they just kind of like, I don't know. What does that even mean? So I think that's a big, big, big piece of it. And that's sort of, I think, a lot around new customer acquisition. I think it's equally important is how are you changing behaviors of your existing customers that are just, have been calling you on the phone for years and years or sending an email to
Right.
your team for years and years or whatever. There's change management that needs to come into play. I mean, I can remember, it's going to seem like back in the Stone Ages now, but like when some of these airlines started implementing online booking, all sort of stuff, they actually charged a fee if you called them. Like, okay,
Yeah.
you just know that you're going to pay for us to talk to you because they wanted people that are like, all the information's on our site. You just got to go there. So they did it through sort of a negative tool, which is a penalty for talking to them. But you need to just make it so easy on your site that once people are there, the convenience is what brings them back. And that goes back to probably what, Chris was talking about, more about optimizing the site, looking at your user journeys. How are they ideally flowing through your site, removing all the friction spots, making it easy, reducing clicks and page load speeds and all those things. So once they get there and they actually use your site, they're like, wow, that was easy. I'm going to do that again. So
Yeah.
all these things you have to look at sort of in totality, and all these, there's, like I say, each of these pieces have to fit together. So that would be strategically how I would look at it, in addition to a bunch of the other sort of channels that Chris was talking, like email and newsletters and things like that, all this stuff. And it seems like a daunting task, but you just need to take it sort of step by step and keep building it out, because the reality is that is the expectation that your customers and new customers are going to have of you as an organization. And the sad truth is, if you're not doing that, somebody else will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you just introduced step 2 of the life cycle, and maybe we're kind of backing up back to the high level, but let me just introduce that, and then we'll go around the room and make sure everybody has some closing thoughts. So the life cycle of this digital preparation we're talking about, the first one, and we really dove into it today, is the acquisition, right? Bring them there. Now, if I was throwing a party at my house and I was talking about acquisition, and I went out to all the social media and I did this and I invited 1,000 people, what RJ was just talking about, number 2, was the conversion. The second, when the 1,000 people show up at my house and I have no food, no parking, no bathroom breaks, no security, no beer, no pizza, no pretzels, it's going to be a bad time. Conversion's going to be terrible. Everybody's going to go back and say Ron throws a terrible party, and it's going to destroy my business, right? So the acquisition piece is important, but if you fail on the execution and the conversion, all the stuff RJ was talking about, that the user experience is good, that they can click, they can find what they want. Matter of fact, there was a McKinsey report. Chris and I are getting ready to do a webinar next week on search. And I was doing some research on McKinsey, and it said just in the last year, they did the percentage, interviewed thousands and thousands of people, and then all the people voted on the things that were most important to them, right? And historically, it's always been free shipping. What was the other one? Cost, right? Free shipping and cost were always number 1 and 2, and they would flip flop, and it did that way for decades. And now, able to find what they're looking for is number 1, and ease of use is number 2. And they've surpassed in the last year cost and free shipping, which is just mind blowing. So that's part of why we're talking about this today, is we're really talking about and RJ said it very eloquently, the new generation, everybody's changing. The buyers are changing. Their expectations are changing. The way we expect online to work, right? So the life cycle is this way, and this is the 5 next webinars we're going to be doing. So today we talked about acquisition, which then brings them to the site. We talk about conversion, and then we talk about retention. Then we're going to talk about the operations and how we operate inside and what we do with our staff and how we take care of that. And then number 5, bringing us right back around, is the strategy that RJ just said. What is the strategy of how we're going to do with the next generation, and what are we continuing to do to continuously improve the site? So those are the 5 pillars that we're going to be talking about in today's and the next 4. So let's go around the room. Chris, let me get a final thought from you. Anything you want to add at all? And then RJ will check in with you and we'll call it.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. And I think there's a great quote for this. Most people overestimate what they can do in the short term and underestimate what they can do in the long term. And I think you really have to just kind of let that sink in with your business and what you're doing within the company that you're helping drive this on. And, one of the realities for anyone who's really, really successful is they can take something big and break it into chunks. Our goal with this series is to help you get into that process. And really, I would say, just generally speaking, it is not bad and probably very good and maybe necessary in some cases to have a great coach, to have a great team that you build up around you as you go down this path. It's definitely something that's proven, and our team collectively as a group, we all can help enable that, whether it's through our complimentary videos and resources that you'll have access to. And we're so excited for you to absolutely just take advantage of, please. And or if you want to take it a step further and interact with us directly and collaborate with us, we surely welcome that. And with that idea in mind, RJ, I'll turn it over to you as well to wrap us up here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that it's really important that you have, strategic partners that truly have your best interest at heart. And I think that's, probably the key reason why the 3 of us are in such strong alignment. We have that core belief in our companies is that it's all about just helping the client be successful, and doing so sort of, from a position of just of transparency. Like, look, it's and giving them advice that may not be in our best interest. Maybe they don't need to do some of these things, but giving them the key advice about what they should do. The piece that I would say to build on what you just talked about, Chris, is don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. A lot of people think, oh, I've got to do all these things. No, just start. Just start and start doing it, because you're going to learn as you go and you're going to see progress. And yeah, you're going to make mistakes. That's okay. But it's not okay to not do anything because you're trying to overanalyze. And then time just keeps ticking by. And pretty soon, this time next year, you're still in the same spot. You're at more risk from competitive disruption. You're at more risk of customer dissatisfaction. So don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. Start doing something.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've talked about it before. Chris and I call it the blockbuster effect, right? We all know what happened to Blockbuster. And Chris introduced a concept to me a while ago. And was it Tony Robbins who introduced Connie?
That's Tony? Who I heard it from was Tony Robbins. I think it was Dempsey, I think was the guy's name that went to Japan and introduced that. But yeah.
Anyway, so I'll throw it up on the screen here. But Connie, CANI, continuous and never-ending innovation. And so that's one of the things that if we don't innovate, and I think RJ even said it in our digital transformation, if we don't innovate, we die, right? And that was one of the things we covered in our last webinar. So stay tuned for the next webinar. We're going to be talking about digital readiness and conversion. And with that, we'll let everyone go. Thank you for your time today, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.